Alrighty. So can you go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself, your current position at SCSU, and any other information you would like everyone to know?
Sure. As mentioned, I'm Brandon Johnson. I currently serve as the director of the MBA program for the Herberger Business School MBA program. And I've been at the university for the most part since 2001. I completed my undergraduate in 2001, worked in residential life for a couple of years as a hall director, moved over to Annick, England between 2003 and 4 to serve as the director of the British Studies program. Came back as a hall director for a few more years, stepped away to do some admissions work elsewhere for a year, then came back and ultimately served one more year as a hall director. So a total of 5 years as a hall director. And then did my graduate work in the college counseling student development program. While I was there, I was serving as the grad assistant for the LGBT Resource Center, which was first called GLBT Services. And then in my second year, it changed to LGBT Resource Center. Completed that in 2010. And in October 10th of 2011, I assumed the interim director position for the LGBT Resource Center, and served in that role for just shy of 5 years. I believe June 30th of 2016 was my last day. And then I've been in my current position for the last 4+ years. So that's a little bit about where I've been throughout the university, and where I am today. So.
Alrighty. Well, great. What were some of your memorable moments during your time as a grad assistant within the LGBT Resource Center, and also your time as an interim director of the Resource Center, and what were some of the changes that you've seen during your time there? I know that's like two questions into one, but try of course, just you know, um,
You know,
um,
there are so many really great memories that I have from my time. When I was serving as the grad assistant, we were in the process of changing the name from GLBT Services to the LGBT Resource Center. That was exciting in and of itself. And at the time, Heidi Aldies, who was the director, and I had the opportunity to facilitate a number of focus groups with students and colleagues to make sure that we were choosing a new name that was more reflective of the current times. And so that was really fun. We also had the privilege of hosting a celebration for Karen Thompson and Sharon Kowalski. I hope I'm saying her last name correctly. But Karen and Sharon, and it was a big 25th, I believe, anniversary of their landmark case. And that was a huge highlight as well. As the director of the LGBT Resource Center, I came in an interim role, and Atwood was about to go through a renovation, and so we ended up moving the LGBT Resource Center, which in and of itself was really exciting to have a fresh, clean, new space that was much more visible for the campus community. Of course, marriage equality became a reality during that time period, and so there was all sorts of really great conversations that were happening that lent itself really well to presenting in classrooms and going out to different organizations. And there was just a big, it was in the forefront of the conversational domain in the United States. And it was an exciting time. Probably my most favorite part of being in the LGBT Resource Center was really working one-on-one with the students who frequent the space, and specifically the students who are in leadership roles through the various student organizations. I really loved that, and gosh, I don't know if I've quite hit your questions, but I just have so many fond and really great memories of my time there.
You have certainly hit all those strides that I mentioned to you within that question. Since you have so many memories, do you want to share, just one memory, with everyone during your time there, or even, touch on the information about the Kowalski story, because I know many people may not be familiar with that story that happened. Um,
Yes. So Sharon and Karen were a couple who, and Sharon was involved in a really horrific car accident in which one of her nieces or nephews, I'm having a hard time recalling all the details right now, but one of them was killed in the car accident, and Sharon was significantly injured. And what happened is that Karen, because marriage equality wasn't a possibility there, Karen's ability to visit Sharon once she was put into for a nursing home for care, she was unable to have access to being able to provide her with the kind of care that a loved one really deserves. And so Karen fought in the courts for years to be able to be able to provide that type of care, and won a landmark case. And Karen Thompson was a faculty member here. I believe she's faculty emerita now, retired, and just an incredible woman with all sorts of drive and passion, and really became a voice for the LGBT movement at that time. So really exciting to be able to have that connection to a really important landmark case for LGBT rights, and to be able to have access to Karen and Sharon and Patty right here on campus.
Nice, great. So how would you look at the climate during the start of the LGBT Resource Center from the past and now to this year in 2020?
Well, I can share that, the history of the LGBT Resource Center, as you know, is really born of the basement of the Women's Center, and started as a resource library with books and other resources, and ultimately evolved into a graduate assistantship, and then that moved into a full-time director. Sherry Atkinson was the first director for the GLBT services, and that was originally located in a custodial closet on the second floor of Atwood, and then evolved. And when I had the opportunity and the privilege to really serve in that role, there was a number of things that were happening at the time. We had a very active student organization presence. There was still quite a bit of programming occurring within the residence halls. We were doing lots and lots of classroom discussions, and faculty would invite the LGBT Resource Center staff in to do some just introductory identity training. We facilitated all sorts of safe space trainings, both internally here within the university and externally to really important partners in the community. And then St. Cloud Pride ended up becoming a part of the fabric of the LGBT Resource Center during that time. Right before I came on board, Heidi was instrumental. Heidi Alves, my predecessor at the LGBT Resource Center, was instrumental in really starting a St. Cloud Pride. And so I worked with the Pride organization to make sure that the university had a prominent presence at that celebration, and really bringing even more visibility to the St. Cloud and the central Minnesota area for queer identity and issues and rights. So
Great. And what will be your hopes for the LGBT Resource Center in the coming year?
In the coming year, gosh, that's a really great question.
Like, of course, like 5 years, 10 years, 1,000 years, if you want to say.
There is just so much more work to be done, and there are so many opportunities to really share important information and knowledge about identity to specifically to our non-queer counterparts that and within the queer community too. It's about providing education and providing knowledge so that people can be more informed. There's a quote from Paul Wellstone that really kind of guides much of what I do, and it's that we all do better when we all do better. And I believe that in order for us to do better, we need to know better. In order to know better, we have to have access to education. We have to have access to being able to engage in really great dialogue and conversations with one another to help us continue understanding. We'll never fully understand everything, right? But it's the quest for trying our very best to get a better grasp of the variety of ways in which people identify and experience the world around us, and that if we can all learn from one another, that we will move towards a more inclusive, a more friendly, kind space. And I think, the current political environment, being an election year and everything that's going on, has kind of us distracted and focused on all of the division. And it probably is a sign that more now than ever is it important that we work towards educating one another and ourselves, and moving in a kinder, more inclusive future. So I hope that the LGBT Resource Center has the ability to continue to play that really critical role. And without it, there is nobody who's really responsible for or accountable for, at least within our own campus community, of doing that work. And it's not only the LGBT Resource Center's responsibility to do that, but it's certainly a leadership role in which the LGBT Resource Center plays, and it's a critical role.
Now I forgot to ask you this question a little bit earlier within our conversation. But were there any opposition of some things that happened within the resource center, or like any negative things during your time as a grad assistant or an interim director, by any chance, or
Yeah, I mean, there's always been, identity is always going to create some level of disruption for the masses, or for the majority. And so along with that, a couple things come to mind. There was a very conservative student organization who had invited a performer to campus who was very anti-queer identity, and just engaging in an event like that really brought to the forefront some of the fear and the underappreciated experiences that the queer community faces on a regular basis, and bringing that right to campus wasn't a way of kind of reigniting this sense of maybe it's not really safe here. But we saw this as an opening to really create dialogue and to rally people's support and to engage our allies and to have a peaceful protest. And it's examples like that I think really work to empower individuals and to empower the community to work towards a more inclusive, a more diverse space. And so on the one hand, you have this unfortunate situation. On the other hand, you have examples of resilience and strength and whatnot. So I think those things always are balanced out. In the moment, it's sometimes really difficult to see the balance there, or to see that things will work or that they are working. It can oftentimes feel overwhelming and disheartening and heavy, quite honestly. So that's one example. When Atwood was undergoing the renovation, a decision was made that the current LGBT Resource Center was going to be transitioned back into really a storage space, which it was originally. And it created an opportunity to move the LGBT Resource Center. And there was a lot of conversation, and there was people who really felt that the LGBT Resource Center needed to be woven into the fabric of the university, that it needed to be very visible so that as people were coming into Atwood, they would see that the LGBT Resource Center is a source of pride for the institution, and that anybody visiting our campus, or especially prospective students and families, would see that they belong here if they in fact are part of the LGBT community, versus having it be tucked away in a little corner of the campus, which is where it had been. And so there was some really lively conversations and debate, and there was a number of alumni who were very concerned about that, of putting it right out in front. There were some who were very excited about it, and so it really was a matter of creating listening spaces to have each person's voice be heard, looking at what was occurring across the nation in terms of where centers were being located and whatnot. And you can never make a perfect decision. It's one of those things that no matter what decision you end up making, there will be criticisms of that decision. There will be people who will be happy with it, and those who will be maybe unhappy with that decision. And then there's a lot who are just complacent and whatnot. So those are a couple that really stand out.
Okay, great. And then one of my last questions to you is that, do you have any additional thoughts or any fun facts that you may want everyone to know about you, or even just like a random fact about the LGBT Resource Center that no one didn't even know about?
Deep secrets or anything like that, but gosh, I just would like to reiterate how valuable, how important I think it is that the institution has an LGBT Resource Center, that we have kind of led the way in a regard for a number of universities to serve as a model. We're unique in that over these last number of years, many standalone LGBT resource centers have kind of gone away and been folded into a mix of other services. And so I think that's a positive. And I hope that, moving forward, that resources continue to be dedicated specifically to serving the queer community here at St. Cloud State and throughout the community, the greater central Minnesota community. I think one thing that maybe people don't always understand is that in outstate Minnesota, there are very, very few resources for firms and schools to tap into. And so maybe one of the lesser known kind of by the general public is the amount that other businesses and educational entities rely on the LGBT Resource Center to provide crucial training and safe space trainings and various presentations that help their workforces and their constituents be able to live into this idea of a more inclusive, more diverse future. So, yeah.
Okay, alrighty. Well, thank you so much, Brandon Johnson, just for talking with me and taking a moment out of your day in regards to your experience with the LGBT Resource Center, and also with our 20th anniversary as well. And thank you so much once again for sharing your wisdom and your experience during your time and your role within the Resource Center.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you for all that you do for our students and for the campus. Your work is critical, and I really appreciate it.
Yes, no problem. Thank you so much.